Well, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us on your lunch hour. I think you'll find this webinar helpful. And again, we do have Troy Kerber from Elite Care. He's the Director of Operations. And what this webinar is really about is how a geriatric care manager, or what we call a life care manager, can help you with those issues that seem almost insolvable concerning your aging parents. So we hope that this is helpful, and why don't we kick it off? Troy, tell us a little about yourself and your company.
Absolutely. And again, Bill and Kayla, thank you for including us in your webinar program. And hello, everyone. I hope you're staying warm. Just a little bit of background first on myself, and not to give away my young age, but I've been in the legal and legal healthcare field and professional services field for a little bit over 32 years, and came on board as the executive director with the inception of Elite Life Care Services, which is our geriatric or care management service for a hire company. And then also we incorporated Elite Guardian Services as part of our not-for-profit guardianship branch that's been extremely active here in Illinois for the past 11 years. We have a very diversified business model. Diversification is it's just a very stressed and emphasized philosophy with our CEO down to myself and our business model, because at the end of the day, as we answer some of your questions, you're going to find that geriatric or life care management is really a very broad professional service, because all of your clients, or if your family members, each one of your situations are just so unique that they require their own footprint or unique blueprint in order for us to provide some creative strategies, solutions, reporting, and then most significantly, guaranteed successful outcomes for your situation. Elite Life Care Services, we have a corporate office based in Naperville. We also just recently, as of 3 months ago, opened our office in Chicago for our growing marketplace in the city of Chicago and well beyond. And that office is located in the West Loop area of Chicago. We also have an office in Maryville, Indiana, that's been in existence for about 3 years. And as of this week, we've just opened an office directly west of Milwaukee, Wisconsin, in Bend, Wisconsin. So our professional services and the need for these essential services continues to grow, and especially in the areas of geriatric or care management for higher case situations, guardianship situations. Often we're asked by family members, attorneys, fiduciaries to act as an agent for powers of attorney for either healthcare, financial property, or all included. We provide some residential estate and property related services, and not to confuse, we are not attorneys or estate planners like Bill is, but we would be involved if your clients have a certain lingering property related issue, where we would work and consult with clients that are hoarding clients, clients that just need some life organizational skills created and applied to their daily lives. We have our own contractor that will do minor repairs, so that if we're placing somebody residentially in an alternative living community, we can do that. We do forensic accounting and bill paying, concierge, and really many other services. So just about everything.
So, Troy, what the heck is a geriatric care manager? Can you
Great question, Bill.
Definition of that person?
It's a great question. That's the question of the day. It's interesting because there's been such an evolution over the years with this professional field. Initially, the main term used commonly was geriatric care manager, because the business evolved around the needs of elderly clients, and it's still very, very prevalent based around the needs of elderly clients. But also that term case manager. If you're in Cook County in Chicago, they tend to use case manager. It seems like in the collar suburbs, I'm hearing more geriatric care manager. On a broader scope, nationally, people will refer to this as life care management. And so the trend, I think it's all based on trends and semantics, but those three terms that I mentioned are really meaning about the same thing or the same focus.
So what does, if I were to hire a geriatric care manager for my 96-year-old mother, what exactly do they do?
Okay, I'm going to give you an answer in the broadest terms. We're hired almost as if I would like to say a guardian angel for that parent that may be in need of professional services or resources as they're going through changes in their life. We're professional advocates that basically come in, identify appropriate needs and provide appropriate solutions to help that person as they life transition.
Okay. Does a geriatric care manager have certain credentials that he or she should have in order to fulfill that role?
Great, another great question. You're going to see that there's two basic types of entities out here providing these services. The business started essentially, and the service started essentially and primarily as social worker based. So you will have individuals that are MSWs, LCSWs, that are in this field. You will have RNs with various nursing disciplines in this field. You also have, if we're going into the area of guardianship, you have people that are non-social worker, non-RN, but they're certified guardians. On our particular team, we have a combination of every level of credential and expertise. And we feel that with that disciplinary approach, we're going to be able to, if we have complex cases, which we have many, that we're able to provide sound strategies to appeal to each discipline.
So a geriatric care manager mainly is an overseer of what needs to be done for that aging parent or that disabled person. And
correct.
Specifically, let's talk about say they need home care or placement in a facility or some other type of some other type of service. So how do you go out? How does a care manager go out and figure out what needs to be done?
Okay, thank you. Our basic approach is this. Whether it's Elite or any of the many other entities in this industry, you have to be passionate, number one, about what you're doing. Number two, you have to be a people connector because we're dealing with people and relationships in their lives. So once we're hired and approved or hired or appointed, we would go out and have that introductory, we call it an introductory meeting. It really becomes more of a meeting assessment where we would determine that elderly client's needs. If, you know, the goal is if people are fortunate and blessed enough to have those financial backings and support, we philosophically like to keep people in their homes. So we're gonna, you know, we'll recommend home health care as part of our care plan recommendation. If for some reason, you know, their medical condition is ever so changing rapidly, there's times where then it's very appropriate that we would want to refer an assisted living or an assisted living that would have a skilled nursing affiliate, you know, in place for that person. So as they transition, they have some continuity of care. Does
the care manager interact with the medical team too?
Absolutely. We have, once we're appointed or hired to advocate on behalf of an elderly client or really a client of any age, if, for example, they're in a skilled nursing facility, a hospital, another type of assisted living or healthcare entity, we have annual care plan conferences. We are very involved in those on either a weekly, bi-monthly, or quarterly basis, depending on what the circumstances are with that client. And so with having our RNs on staff, we're able to, really ask those pertinent, relevant questions in regards to somebody's medical condition.
What about governmental benefits? We're always looking for income streams to help out the either the aging parent or the disabled person. Do you guys hook up or try to coordinate the governmental benefits that may be out there?
Absolutely, Bill. We have some expertise on staff, and I would like to say a majority of the companies out there would have somebody or one or two or three individuals on staff that would have extensive background in entitlements. And the goal philosophically is for any service like this is if somebody's hiring us, you invest a little to hopefully save more. So we are going to look for every cost contained avenue and resource that we can for that client. And that's really just advocacy at its best, when that is achieved.
So we talk a lot about the long-term care insurance policies. Does that cover a geriatric care manager typically?
Great point. Great question. That question comes up on a weekly basis. What some LTC or long-term care policies will do, some will say that they're going to cover a form of care management. What they don't tell the client necessarily, or their client, is that usually that cost is maybe about 10 to 20% of our usual and customary, which 10 or 20% is better than nothing. The way it works is they're able to submit some reimbursement for some of a care manager's cost. And hopefully with a good policy, they can receive some reimbursement back.
So, and we've had a lot of intra-family discussions and intra-family concerns and conflicts about whether to put mom or dad into a facility or keep her or him at home. How do you insert yourself, and what do you do with those type of conflicts?
We have a situation that we had to address early this week where I'll give you just a brief case scenario. Elderly client in the western suburbs, and has, fortunate for her, she has professional resources and financial resources, but for some reason she tends to be very opposite of what her family members feel are in her best interest. And so, before we were involved, they've gone through about 3 to 4 home health agencies, CNAs, attempted sporadic nursing supervision. So in this situation, we were brought in, and I actually had to go in and have this conversation with the client, where sometimes you're using a strategy of good cop, bad cop, without use of a better expression. And so we're taking the pressure off of the family members, and I'm coming in and basically saying, this is it, this has to work if you're going to stay at home. Was I loved after the conversation? Most likely not. But now 3 days later, I'm not sure she remembers the conversation, but services are back in place. The monitoring's there. That's essential to keep this family's loved one in her home and to try to execute her wishes, which is the goal for any of us. And as care managers, that's what we want to do. We want to be able to promote and protect one's dignity.
So, okay. Now, you talked about placement in facilities, and is it something that you basically find facilities and then place the particular person in that facility? Is there any follow-up that you do once the person's in that facility?
Another great point. It's one thing to successfully place a client into a successful, or what we think is the most appropriate residential, living community. And it's a whole nother thing that once the placement is there, does it mean that there's life, happily ever after? 5 out of 10 times, most likely not. The reality of any living community, and we are in the information business. So, when a care management company or a geriatric care management company is hired, we're hired for our expertise, our information on what living community is good, what living community isn't, what experiences have you had, what have we had, what are the most successful outcomes. So we have what's called, it is actually called the Guardian Angel Program. So once that a family member is placed into a living community, and we have a lot of scenarios where, let's say, the daughter's in New York, there's no other family in the Chicago area. So we'll get these requests to continue providing wellness checks. We participate in the care plan conferences. We have a program called Care Auditing, where we will come in and with our RN, the RN will review the medical charts to see what's really happening with this person. We have a nutritionist on staff that will review the nutritional chart of that new resident. And of course, we have the social worker to look at always the ever-changing psychosocial aspect of that person. We also have what's called a concierge level, where that person at a lesser rate can come in and provide additional activities, wellness checks, and also, depending on the clients or the new resident situation, whether they have the ability to leave that facility to go out on little field trips. We offer that program, and that's been very successful and really one of our largest growing programs, I think, not just only at Elite, but in the entire industry.
So all of these programs and all of these tasks that you perform, they are monitored or they come under the supervision of the geriatric care manager. Is that correct?
Absolutely. If we have a concierge level providing a service to make it more cost contained, but they'll still be managed by a life care manager or a geriatric care manager. Because at the end of the day, we're hired by families or appointed by the court to look at a holistic situation for somebody, which is usually life-related, medical-related, sometimes financial. If somebody's being exploited, we get involved with a lot of those cases where we're protecting the elderly and financial abuse cases.
What about if the client has private duty or medical people coming in for services of, the activities of daily living or oxygen or getting a bed, stuff like that? Do you guys monitor those types of things?
Yeah, we do from time to time. Families will, if they're extremely busy traveling for business, or they live out of state or out of the country, they'll hire us to come in and make occasional spot checks to do kind of a care audit of how the interaction is going between, let's say, their mother and the CNA, or their father and that occasional home health care nurse that visits. So we will come in unannounced, or we like to come in unannounced whenever possible, because I think when you have a preset appointment, sometimes you're able to gather less information.
Yeah. It's like when the bank examiner comes in, right?
Right. Exactly.
So now our life care managers or geriatric care managers, are they on call 24 hours or is it usually a 9 to 5 deal? How does that work?
Okay. And once again, I'm going to give you two answers. When the industry started years ago, ideally, the founders of these companies or these private practitioners were thinking, this is a Monday through Friday position, 8 to 5, 9 to 5. But as the complex needs and requests made by families on behalf of their clients and the strategies that are implemented to benefit the lives of people, sometimes we will work after hours. I mean, we are on call 24 hours. We, do know our services and profession well enough to determine what's an actual emergency and what's not, but we will go out on an emergency basis.
Okay, great. Is there an association of geriatric care managers?
There is a national board of geriatric care managers where they kind of have like their own accreditation process, but from a governmental standpoint, there is no mandate in place right now that's actually pre-qualifying anybody who provides geriatric or care management. I like to say that it's one of the last professional services that remains unregulated. Is it going to stay that way? In theory, we don't believe so. We believe that the industry will become more and more regulated. What I do like to share is the other part of this answer is if you are providing guardianship services, I always like to share with clients and attorneys such as yourself and fiduciaries that we are regulated by the court.
So the court would oversee your fees and your actions with that, with the ward.
Absolutely.
Okay. Well, given that if there's no guardianship in place and there's no real regulation by the state, what kind of questions should a person ask a geriatric care manager when that person is looking to hire one?
Okay. There's I believe, three essential questions that people need to ask. Number one is are you a professional organization that's insured and bonded? A lot of this industry originally evolved with independent practitioners. There's still many out there, and they've done some wonderful work over the years. But, being insured and bonded is really a pretty important aspect of whether a professional person like yourself or your firm or a bank or a family member or client decides to hire, any type of geriatric or life care organization to work on behalf of their loved ones. The next aspect would be, just looking at the staff capabilities of the organization. If an independent care manager that can do some wonderful things, but usually when they reach that threshold of managing the lives of 4 to 5 clients, and then if they're referred client number 6 or 7, they're above threshold and there's struggles because it's very difficult to staff, the needs of that client. So knowing that when anybody's going to hire a company that's insured and bonded, that has a social worker credential, an RN credential, a certified guardian, as well as, many experienced people in this field, that is just a very critical factor.
So the person should ask about the workload of each geriatric care manager. Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely. Because when you look at this in retrospect, our governmental agencies, as an example, where they have quote unquote case managers, and they're trying to do some wonderful work. And I'm not going to mention the entities. I don't need to, but the point is this: you have a caseworker that could be following 300 to 350 clients yearly. How does anything get done? So the people that are looking for this type of service are people that are going to need immediate and require some attention, and timing is everything, as well as the expertise.
How do you guys bill? How does a geriatric care manager bill? Is it an hourly basis or is it a flat fee for so many visits? How does that work?
Predominantly, care management entities bill on an hourly basis. And I think there tends to be a little bit more of a usual and customary rate now, other than when the industry started several years ago. Entities were just charging really whatever they wanted to do, and they were fairly exorbitant rates. So the positive news for the consumer is that the rates should drop down, and you can find a wonderful service that's much more affordable than somebody who would be paying $220 an hour or $190 or $170 an hour for these type of services.
So, okay, so you're mainly an hourly fee.
Correct.
Tell us, go through your files in your own mind and tell us where your geriatric or your life care manager has made a huge difference in the life of one of your clients.
Absolutely. I want to share one of our most out of the box scenarios to share a little bit more interest here with our audience. And this was something that in my 23 years of being in this specific industry, that I didn't think we would ever be able to come up with a solution until I referenced our CEO, who's quite the visionary. But we had a call about 2 years ago. An elderly client, she's 105 years old, living on the North Shore of Chicago, lived in her home for about 60 some years. All of a sudden, she was progressively upside down on her mortgage. The long and short of it is during the course of her lifetime, she had 3 daughters that each one of them had financial difficulties and challenges. So this wonderful woman, helped each one of her children with their mortgages. The catch-22 from the fiduciary end was she was never paid back or reimbursed for any of that assistance she provided. So here she is, 105 years old. She still had some pretty good decisional capacity, very independent for a 105-year-old, woman. And the goal was this, and this was the struggle. When the fiduciary called me, they said, "Troy, we know that you won't have a solution or a strategy here, but that's the situation." So I referenced our CEO, Philip Marone, who is he's an investor in real estate, residential and commercial in the Chicago area, which is another thing we do. And ran the scenario by him. We went to assess the property. So here's what we were able to do. Now, this is an extreme solution, and this is not something we can do for every case, but he assessed the property. He made an offer to the bank to buy the property. We were able to keep the woman in her home for the remaining part of her life without her really, being aware of any type of struggle here. We were able to keep her in her residence. We bought the property and she just paid like a monthly rent. And then her life was not disrupted.
Wow.
So that's an extreme scenario, but we have so many cases. I'm going to continue talking on until you stop me. So I'm going to share with you another case, and this was a complex case. And what we're seeing now, Bill, is a new trend, especially in the last year to year and a half during the pandemic. We're getting more requests from elderly parents to hire us on behalf of their adult children for various reasons, whether they have developmental disability, mental health, etc. So we had one particular case where we have elderly parents with some means in California. They have a daughter that resides in the Chicago area, very successful college professor, diagnosed with bipolar schizophrenia, experienced a very difficult divorce, some legal problems, was separated from her young daughter, who was about 5 or 6 years old at the time. We were appointed by this family and per an attorney to be her care manager, to see what we can do to assess the situation. We started as a care manager for hire case. It evolved into a guardianship case where the parents asked us to be co-guardians alongside them for the best, the betterment of their daughter and to help her with her challenges. The long and short of it is we started this particular case about 4 years ago. And as of about 6 months ago, this client is near, not full restoration from the guardianship, but near restoration. We're no longer a co-guardian, but she is back in the community. We were able to reunite her with her daughter in visitations. She has part-time employment and she has a residence. And, we still do some occasional monitoring on behalf of her and reporting to her parents in California how she's doing. So that's a case that just really, I felt really good about the restored visitation between mother and daughter. I felt that was some great work. And there's great work in this industry on a daily basis, whether it's Elite or the other great companies out here. But, very pleased with that. So another case we have that's going on now, and this is where we were a court-appointed geriatric or care manager up in one of the northern counties. I want to spare the details, but up in one of the northern counties, we have a husband and wife, a retired attorney in his late 80s. His spouse is like mid 80s, and She had the onset of dementia about 3 or 4 years ago. Well, during this whole time and process, the power of attorney and her will was changed by the family member, the husband, and the husband's daughter is an attorney. So this was a red flag. So now it's in the court system. The bottom line is this woman, there was concern by the children of the wife that services were being neglected. And this is a second marriage, a long-term second marriage of 38 years. But what's happening to her mother? You know, has she seen a physician? She needs speech therapy. You know, so-and-so said he would take her and he's been negligent and this isn't happening. So we've been brought in on an emergency basis to make sure that everything is going according to plan. That took us to a couple of weeks to really get everything to where it should be. But, you know, the family's happy and the elderly client's going in a very positive direction.
Okay, great. Well, why don't we open it up to Q&A? We already have one question, and that's from Pat Kerber, believe it or not. No relation.
I have no idea. I saw her name pop up, and are we related, Pat?
I don't think so.
Okay.
She says your title on the webinar references working with a professional relative. How do you do that? What do you add to the situation? Well, let me start. When I say professional relative, that is a metaphor for a geriatric care manager who is a partner with you, just like a relative who comes in and helps you to sort out the issues and helps you with some solutions. And go ahead, and if you want to add anything else to that.
Well, Bill, I think your description is absolutely correct. We do come in and sometimes we're referred to, you know, because we're in a very people-oriented profession, and we consider it an honor to represent anyone in helping serve the best interest of somebody's quality of life. And some people, some clients that are happy with us, they refer to us as extended family members. So, you know, however you view it, we are kind of the conduit to ensure that a loved one gets everything they need and that they're protected.
Okay.
Bill, I also have a question from Mary. Mary, I'm going to allow you to go ahead and unmute yourself. You should be able to do that bottom left corner. There you go.
Go ahead,
Okay.
Mayor.
I have two questions. One is you had listed 3 questions to ask when looking at services such as you provide. I only caught the first 2. So could you repeat the third question to ask?
Oh, sure. And I can just elaborate further on that. I think you want to find out about the availability of staff in terms of logistics and proximity. You know, if you have a care manager that's trying to service a client or your family member, and let's say they're based 70, 80, or 100 miles away, I can assure you that service could be stretched a little bit in terms of providing the more personalized service that one would need. Then it becomes a little bit more telephonic. That's what insurance companies, with all due respect, insurance companies on a national level are going to try to provide what's called telephonic case management. And maybe it's effective in some scenarios, but for the most part, for the types of services we're requested or asked to do on behalf of family members and their loved ones, it's really not sufficient. Does that answer the question? Or
Yeah, it does. Thank you.
Oh,
My
you-
second,
oh,
Go ahead.
pardon?
Go ahead,
My
Mayor.
my second question is, you know, as you get a little older, your contemporaries get a little older too, and then you start hearing stories of, you know, people going into homes and not having happy situations, or, you know, family members rushing in and cleaning out the house, that type of thing. At what point, you know, do you intervene? You know, saying, I'll use myself as an example. I'm still able to take care of everything I need to take care of, but I'm looking towards the future where, you know, I might not be as capable, but would prefer to stay at home. Would
Sure.
I directly engage you, and then you become part of, you know, helping me live out my life in my home, or yeah, I'm just concerned about all these horror stories, and I'm sure you've heard them all. And
Sure.
you just want to live out your life peacefully without undue stress and drama.
Good,
Absolutely.
good
I
word.
I can answer that, or if you want, or I can redirect to you, Bill, but I would just
Go
say,
ahead, Troy.
okay, in this scenario, I would recommend that you do first is I would refer an attorney such as Bill, or you need attorney consultation to get some of your wishes in legal document so that you're protected. And as a care management entity, if you hired another company or you hired Elite, I would like to think people are going to act in your best interest, but they have a little bit more protection and guarantee of that. I think consulting with an attorney, first and foremost, will give you the basis. And then secondary, then a care management entity is selected to act and do the actual legwork and act in your best interest according to what you want or what your desires are and what's in the legal document. Does that make sense?
So basically, like I've already worked with Bill, and I have a trust set
Okay.
up with my wishes. So would
Oh.
would like a secondary consultation be needed, or go right to care management, or?
Okay, in your scenario, you would just go right to care management.
Yeah, correct.
Okay.
Yeah, just to riff off that point, the while you're still alive, your powers of attorney for healthcare and for property are your most important documents. So you always want to make sure those are up to date, and also the agents that you've picked or chosen are the ones that you still want to help you out, just in case you become incompetent or you need someone to do some decision making for you. So we always say that when you're still alive, those powers of attorney are the most important documents.
So one supplemental question. So say I want to age out in my house. So would you provide services for someone to come in and check on me daily, for the little upkeep that's needed on the house? Or do you step in on there? How extensive is home care for someone who just needs a little assistance?
It's only as essential as your needs. So in other words, if you have a need and you want that service provided, because I mean, you are controlling your life, you're the master of your life, right? So you're going to be able to make those decisions. When you hire a professional service like ours, it's not, to my knowledge, I mean, I can tell you at Elite, we don't have a mandate that says, well, we need to come by weekly. We can make a professional recommendation after we have an introductory assessment. What you do with that information is entirely up to you. Now, stay with me on this. So I'm going to go to the other extreme, which this does not involve you, but if we're appointed as a guardian by the court, so then that varies because that person is considered deemed not to have decisional capacity to run their own life care, make their own medical or financial decisions. So then often we're asked to, and most often a fiduciary is the guardian of the estate, but we would come into that scenario and we're making more absolute decisions. But then we're a reporter for the court. We're like the eyes and ears, and we're responsible and we have to be accountable for you to the court. In your scenario, it's really deemed on whatever your wishes are, whatever you would like done.
Okay, good to know. Thank you.
Oh, sure.
Thanks, Mary, for
Great
that.
question.
Those are
Thank you,
good
Mary.
questions. Those are good questions. Let's see. Anyone else have questions about what a geriatric care manager does, or specific situations, what a geriatric care manager would do, anything like that?
Looks like Mary has another question. Mary, you can unmute yourself.
Okay, yeah. Thank you, Bill. That question brought my question to mind. I'm, with COVID going on, all you hear about is staffing shortages and that kind of thing. So how are you on staffing shortages, and what is your screening process for employees?
Okay, great question, Barry. Our policy at Elite Life Care Services is this. I mean, number one, because we do have a healthcare affiliate, which is called Elite Care Management. They provide home nursing and caregiving, separate division. But because of that affiliation, we have to follow all the federal and governmental mandates, which means that in order to have any contact within the home of a client, that team member is vaccinated, tested, and following all the necessary health precautions, masking, gloves, etc., whatever is required. As far as staffing, we've been very blessed that we really haven't had any major issues. I mean, if anything, we've added staff during the pandemic. There's just, for whatever reason, we could talk about trends all day, but we've had more of an urgent need for our services, especially in the second half of, I'm going to call this the second half of the pandemic. We hope it's over sometime soon, but I want to speculate on that. So, but I hope that helps, knowing that.
Do you do background checks, Troy?
Absolutely. As an insured and bonded entity, we are required by law to do background checks on every and any team member that comes on board with any of the Elite Care Group companies. In terms of Elite Life Care Services and Elite Guardian Services, that is an absolute. We have to conduct those background checks.
How about drug testing?
Drug testing as well.
Right. Anyone else? Troy, I have a couple follow-up questions here.
Okay.
Say my mom, like I say, is 96 years old. She's doing great mentally. Her mobility is a little limited, but they seem to have these care conferences that I like to attend.
Sure.
If she had no one to attend those, would someone from your firm go out and attend those? If you were
Yep. Bill, absolutely. So if, let's say that's, one's able to see their mother on a regular basis, but that's the one void because of somebody, of one's professional life or their business requirements. Yes, we have been hired just to be kind of just exclusively participate in care plan conferences. And then most importantly, we'll do what we call professional reporting back to you or the client, so that you have all of the details. There's running documentation of what's transpiring. We feel that if it isn't in writing, it's like it never happened. So everything has to be documented.
Okay. So do you get a copy of that, the care conference, and do you follow up after that care conference to make sure that what they say they're going to do, they actually do?
Yes, no, absolutely. And I mean, there are times, depending on the living community and how can I say this in a nice way, the staff capabilities, we'll have the care plan meeting minutes or notes shared with us immediately after the meeting. There's other times where we've had to chase. When we're in a chase situation, those living communities kind of move to the bottom of our list. And we'll share with that loved one that, hey, we've been asking for 2 weeks. We physically have gone to the residence and we're not getting the care plan notes. To me, that is a major red flag. That happens maybe 10% of the time in our industry on our follow-up there. 90% of the communities are really good about that. So.
Anyone else? We've got about 13 more minutes. So while you guys are thinking of questions, when it comes to placement, Troy, in a facility, what kind of information do you gather from the client when they hire you to do a placement in a facility or find a facility for them?
What we like to advise to the families up front is this. The more information we can receive, and I'll detail that in a second, but the more information we can receive that's essential information on their loved one, number one, the more cost effective the services, and number two, the more expediently we can appropriately place them. So some of the basic details that we do need, it's very helpful, obviously, to have like primary physician information, medical history information. If there's any pertinent family dynamics that might, might be a factor in psychosocial and adaptation, having that information is very important, as well as the financial information.
Okay. All right. What if someone's running out of money? Are there options out there for assisted living and for nursing home care? Because obviously both of those are fairly expensive and seem to have, especially assisted living, seems to be only out of pocket. So what kind of insight do you have on that?
What we're seeing right now in the industry is, because of the rise in pandemic numbers, some places are overcrowded, some aren't. Those living communities, and I'm talking communities that are pretty decent, appropriate living communities, some are willing to be a little bit more flexible and accepting new residents, and even some with some limited, more limited financial means. If somebody, as we know, if somebody does have a property, having a property to sale that goes into their assets is very helpful in this situation. We had a case, it was about 2 weeks ago, a placement where this particular person who's being placed was very, what I would say, property wealthy, but very limited in cash value. So we were able to help him and the daughter by, we were able to set up a lien agreement by contract, but we were able to get everything taken care of quickly as the properties are going to be sold, which that could take a little bit of time, but we were able to offer some of that flexibility. So in other words, we're providing a great service and we're waiting to get reimbursed, but we know that eventually we will.
There's a question here, and the person wants to know, what are your rates?
Our rates are, our usual and customary are $110 an hour.
Okay.
Now we have some other levels of service. So let's say, we started as a care manager doing the assessment at $110 an hour. Once we determine what the needs are going to be, sometimes those needs can be fulfilled by what we call a care associate. Then we're at $70 an hour. And with further determination of the needs and execution of a successful care plan, then we have a concierge level service at $50 an hour. So we offer some flexibility and affordability, because one of our goals here as a professional service, when I brought the business model to Elite years ago, is to try to reach as many people that we can to benefit them, so that the service isn't exclusively for the higher wealth client.
Now, are your rates, as you compare those to other firms like yours, are those in line with the other ones?
Yeah, they should be for the most part. There's a few companies out there that are still charging more. The $110 an hour rate has kind of evolved because that's the usual and customary rate in guardianship court. In guardianship, really, the action plan is geriatric care management or case management, as far as taking the actual steps to help somebody. So that's where the 110 an hour kind of evolved. As I mentioned earlier, when this industry started, there were people charging over $200 an hour. Some of the individual practitioners tend to charge more because, again, they're an individual practitioner. At the end of the day, I think you need to look at outcomes. What are going to be your outcomes based on the value? What value are you receiving for the investment in the service?
Okay. We'll let it go one more minute if there's no other questions, and we can wrap it up. I don't see any other questions. So Troy, thank you very much for being our guest today on geriatric care managing. As we say, the professional relative that is your partner in solving the many times insolvable problems of the aging parents. So we appreciate your time, and we appreciate your insight and knowledge.
Bill, thank you so much for including and having me today, and I hope that this was helpful. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, folks. We will be, again, this is our monthly webinars. We will have another webinar next month, and we'll be sending out invites in the titles of the webinar. So we're looking forward to doing that in February. Again, have a good month. And if there's any questions, you can call either Troy or myself. And Troy, what is your phone number? Just if they want to call you up.
Oh, sure. My direct line, and of course, it's on our website at Elite Life Care Services. If you go under team bio, and the numbers all over the website, but it's 630-470-3893. And my email address is attached to my bio on our website under the team link.
And they can contact you directly, right?
At any time. And if it's just questions, call and ask me. I'm here as a resource for any and all of you. And doesn't mean you're gonna hire us. Sometimes it's appropriate to hire us, other times it's not. But I want to be very honest with you about that, and just hopefully I can, whatever input and feedback I share with you, you'll find helpful and resourceful.
Okay. Well, you've been a great resource for us, our firm. So
Well, thank you, Bill.
I'm sure you would be a great resource for anyone that reaches out to you. So thanks again. And
Thank you,
everyone, all the participants for joining in today. Take care.
You too. Thank you. Bye now.